I'm quilting Nancy's Potted Flowers quilt, and I'm putting my wicker design on it. I've just advanced the quilt, and one thing I do want to note is I don't put this, even though I could go closer to the take-up bar, I don't, because I feel like it makes the design a little off as I'm trying to realign things if it's too close to the take-up bar. So it's better to give it a little bit of room. I know you'll have to quilt out more in the length, but that I've noticed really helps. So this is how I do it. There's several other ways. I am using a Gamma Statler. This is the way that's most effective for me, and so you may have another way to do things. I just want to show you what I'm doing. So I've put the needle down on a previously quilted point, kind of like right here, right on the point. So now I'm going to go to my screen, and I have everything selected. And I will say the first row, I'm going to unselect this. Okay, the first row and the last row are red. The first row helps me line things up, and the last row isn't in my boundary, so I would hit the bar right along this edge, so I don't want to do that. But I am going to highlight the whole thing because as I get to the bottom of the quilt, even this bottom part, I do want it all to line up. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom in, and my goal is to, you can see my crosshairs, that's where the machine is, and the needle is in that spot. Now this is the spot right here where the needle is on the design, and so I need to bring it down to meet up with where the machine is. So you can use your down arrow to do that. I like to do that. I don't like using my mouse because I don't want it moving side to side. You can also, like you can see, I just go too far with just the arrow, so you can do Alt and then arrow, and you can make a minor adjustment. I'm not going to be able to do, well, actually I can. So Alt, and you can see that it makes the slightest adjustment down. So I think we're like perfect as far as height goes. So now I'm going to use these little fun toggle options to move the design in. And what I'm doing is, because quilts shrink as they're quilted, I am lining it up on a previously quilted line that already has had some quilt shrinkage. That's what makes it work for me. And of course, sometimes it's not exactly perfect, and that's more human error than machine or design error. But you can do a little quilt surfing as it's quilting out. The first row after you roll a quilt, and that totally works. So I am just manually moving my wheel with my hand up, and now I'm going to take it over to the right side. I always do the left side first. It seems to need more of an adjustment. And now I'm going to go right in this point, put the needle down, go back to this, and you can see that's pretty close. I mean, we can zoom in and see that I do need to go to the right just a hair. And sometimes it takes a few times going back and forth, and that is so minuscule that you might be able to just make that work, but we're going to call that good. Now I'm going to trim it and along the edges and start quilting, and then I will show you how I do a little quilt surfing if I need it as I'm quilting. Also, I am in repeat pattern mode. I did create the boundary first, and then I did, after I selected my wicker design, I did use this repeat pattern. And I just leave the boundary there. It could be deleted, but I just leave it there as I quilt. And I use this same thing. So after I sew, I select the rows that I will do next, and then right click and mark them unsewn. I also wanted to make one more quick note about designs that touch. Sometimes designs can be off whether they touch or not if you have clamps like this and they're like weighing down the side of your quilt. So it's important, if you are having that issue, to lift it up with a yardstick or a dowel or something. And then also make sure as you're rolling and adjusting and setting things up that you actually have everything in place every time that you do it. Because if you forget to put this in place one time when you've already set up that or readjusted that, then this could be off and create problems for when you start quilting. I do make sure as it's starting, even the other rows, that things are lined up because of that very thing. It's very, very easy for a quilt to sag, especially if there's lots of fabric left over on one side like I have on this quilt. And I am tucking right here a little bit of the excess fabric because this definitely can sag having that much extra fabric. Now let's talk about quilt surfing. I don't know about you, but I was taught when I was trained how to use my Statler not to lean on the quilt, touch the quilt, lean on the table or the bar, because it could throw a design off, and it definitely can. But I am barely touching, you will see, the quilt as I am trying to meet the line. So I'm going to come right up here, briefly touch it, and then let go. I don't want to throw off any other part of the design as it's quilting. And right there again, because those were the two spots that I needed to touch. Now, the interesting thing is this is just the first row as the quilt has been advanced. I'm not going to quilt surf on the other rows that are in this section, but this is the center part and I don't have to touch it at all. Another important part is when you're quilting designs that touch, you should be quilting out the rows left to right, left to right, left to right. If you're going to go left to right and then right to left to right, and right to left, things are going to be off. And in my experience, whether they touch or not, they're just going to be off because you're shrinking the quilt at both directions as it's being quilted. You will see right here I'm touching on the top part is because on the right side it was going just barely past that line and I didn't want it to. So it's just briefly touch, but of course not on the bottom at all because we don't want to throw off the next row, which could throw off the others. And you will see here it quilted out beautifully. Designs like this are actually worth the extra effort, even if it's just a little bit of quilt surfing. And look how beautiful it is.